Hey James.
Hello, Mike. Hello, Michael. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you.
Is our last
Um,
episode on? It's on. It's uploaded, right?
yeah, somebody reposted it the other day, so
Oh,
it has
wow.
to. It must be live.
Amazing. That's great.
Yeah, so we're
Yeah,
we're back. We're back in business.
we're back in business. How's it going?
It's going well. It's quite late here. It's 12:30. That's what I do. What I do for the podcast. I've
Exactly.
I've I've got young kids,
Just
Michael,
committed.
and
I know.
yeah, it's commitment, and they'll be up early in the morning. Let me tell you, they don't care about the podcast.
Do they listen to the podcast? Are they
No,
fans?
of course they don't listen to the
Did
podcast.
they download our last episode?
No, 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 they didn't. Yeah,
Oh, that's
no,
too bad.
it is too bad. I guess I failed as a cultural shepherd. I guess I
They
haven't. You know, I
they'll come
I did
around to
start
it. They'll come
maybe
around. Yeah.
maybe. It's funny, like you see these actors and musicians talking about their kids, and they're like, yeah, my kid hates watching my stuff. Meanwhile, it's like, someone awesome saying that. And it's just, yeah, well, I guess I should keep my expectations low as
I,
to
I always found
what the.
that I always found that really funny, where a celebrity's kid couldn't care less that they were a celebrity, you know? It's probably a very
Yeah,
humbling experience, yeah.
yeah. And they're like, and not only that, they're just like, Dad, why did you do that?
Anyways,
Yeah, yeah. So yeah. So you were just doing your one lesson.
still get my one lesson, that's right. Still
You
doing
you
my one
just finished
lesson.
at that moment.
Yeah,
Well, so how did it go?
I thought it went very well. It's
What
nice
was
to
the
still
topic
teach.
today?
We're working through some repertoire. It's level 9 repertoire.
Yes, that's right.
So,
RCM 9.
the classic Mozart K545.
Yes, I
Working
do
on
know
that.
this.
Yeah. And
Okay.
a handle courant. So yeah, it's nice to have one foot still in
A,
music
a,
that
a
way.
a toe still into the musical
A
world.
toe, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, I gotta say, Michael, it's a lot easier talking to you online than in person. This seems more natural to me.
What does that mean?
Well, I mean, for those who are just chiming in, last week we were together in the same room doing the podcast,
Yes, we were.
and fantastic. Afterwards we had a pint, and that was quite enjoyable.
Mm.
But I gotta say, you are a soft-spoken man.
What is,
Well,
is it
you
is
have
it better
such.
online?
Well, yeah, you're amplified a bit, like you're right in my ear.
Yes, I
And
see.
also, I also have the comfort knowing that where our voices are going to be on separate tracks, so I can somewhat compensate for whatever volume discrepancy there may be. And you're just so refined in how you speak, and every syllable is like a little pearl on a chain. And I have a more barky approach to speech, it's fine. And however, I typed a little like description of the podcast episode last week. Should I read it for you? See if I can find it
Sure.
real quick.
Yeah. Your podcast
Oh
descriptions are
yeah.
always super insightful, I
Well,
find.
you see, I had some time on the plane, so I listened to the podcast between one of the plane rides back here. And I thought, I'll type in a little thing. And I said, I'll read it word for word, since otherwise it's going to be lost in the ether of the internet. And who reads? I mean, I guess you've read the podcast descriptions, but not this one.
Hmm.
So it says, it's official. Michael is in medical school. You are. And James and Michael meet and speak together for the first time in the same room, sort of. And that's also kind of true. What does Michael think makes music lessons very special? Now, let me say one thing. When I write stuff, I never, ever, ever, ever correct it. So, like, so it's kind of fun to kind of be back over this. or I just never read it again. It's I feel like speech and text should be like improvisational, just move on from it.
Mm, right.
Of course, that's not how the written word works. However, how does a musician who has achieved a doctorate in piano performance pivot towards a completely new career path? Question mark. How will he stay connected to his past? It's all about you, all these things. This is the beginning of the second season. I guess I used the word season of the Pew podcast, where James is slightly preoccupied trying to find the right speaking volume to match Michael's sweet voice.
Is it really that noticeable, like the difference between
Oh my God. Like
our
it's
volumes?
in the same room, yes. I mean,
Oh, interesting. That's interesting.
yeah.
I had no idea.
I well, I don't know. I guess I'm used to projecting. I don't know. I mean, maybe
Yeah,
it's the
I mean,
children. Let's peg it to children. I
I mean,
mean,
I don't,
you
I don't project. I think that that's probably more what the cause is. It's really that I just
yeah.
don't project at all.
Yeah, and of course, why must you? We have fingers to do the you project your voices on the keyboard, I am sure.
Exactly.
Um, and I
Um,
also did a little bit of research after our last podcast. And I said last time I said about the title ECM for the record
oh
label.
yes, right.
I said that it might be for European contemporary music, and I was wrong, Michael.
What was it?
Edition of contemporary music.
Oh, audition. Okay, I see. Yeah. Huh.
So I guess and what that's fine. I mean,
Hmm.
I just kind of pegged it to Europe, but Europe is a nice place, and but it says here that ECM's motto is the most beautiful sound next to silence.
Wow. Right. You had mentioned that last week.
Did
That's,
I say
I think
that?
did you say that in the podcast? I thought we talked about it either then or after.
Well, I don't know. I looked it up on the plane because I
Oh.
remembered that I was wondering about what it stood for. And so if I talked about it in the podcast, then I guess I intuitively knew that silence was no, I don't know. But what do you think about that? The most beautiful thing next to silence. How do you?
The only thing that well the thing that comes to mind is this thing that you hear a lot in music school um that sound or music is kind of or that silence is the canvas for sound, that's kind of the equivalence of what we do
Yeah,
um compared to like visual artists. So that's a really nice quote in terms of thinking of what silence actually is to music, I guess.
yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, like one of my favorite moment in my I guess becoming a musician. Did I become a musician? I'm still, I guess, becoming a musician. Was I played a concert and I played this Goyeska piece by Granados, the
Hmm.
Maiden and the Nightingale movement. And there's this moment in it where like it's this beautiful like tragically um gorgeous melody thing going on, and then like it stops, it breathes for a second, and I had the opportunity to play it to a rather full hall. Like for me at that time, I don't know, how big is the Arch Culture Center?
Few hundred, isn't it? I don't know, something like that.
Is it 1,000? Is it?
It
I feel
might
like
be.
St.
I don't
John's one
I
might.
have no idea.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It feels like a lot. Maybe it's
Okay.
500.
Yeah.
I really have no idea. And so I was playing this piece, and then it comes to this part, and then like there's like this silence. There's like, and it could be for a second, but then I like let it go for like 5 seconds, and there's like, and then everybody's like super super quiet, and it's
Yeah.
just like that for me was like, oh, this is really for a 15 or 16-year-old, that was or like it was a it was a wonderfully moving experience of silence, and then realizing again the power of silence in music, which is yeah,
That's a really
but
beautiful experience.
absolutely,
Yeah.
you know. Do you have any particular memories of silence in music?
I think about the exact same thing in terms of, when you have a breath in the music and then you just take either a little bit longer, depending on the hall, right? They can have certain resonance or certain reverb in the hall, and sometimes sound can last for a very long time. And so when you kind of try to extend silence for even a little bit longer, it actually can be very powerful. And it sounds, I think the thing about being in a hall after practicing in a practice room for so long, it almost surprises you, even though you're the one playing it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's
Totally.
like a very fresh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Say when you say that, it reminds me of another experience. I don't know. Stop me if this story sounds familiar because I don't want to bore our listeners with old stories. Um, but about an experience I had. I guess it must have been a sound symposium at the choral room with John Wire. Did I mention this?
No,
So
not
John
a,
Wire was an incredible musician, teacher, performer, percussionist, improviser, and he was giving a workshop, and it was in this room at the university. There's about, I guess, capacity of 70 or so, and there was an exercise. He had one of these. I want to say Korean, but it could be Japanese, like kind of these one of these funeral bowls, with the
like the
you
prayer
kind of
bowl. I think that's what it's called,
yeah,
or
like one of
yeah.
these meditate. And so you kind of like you make this like circle around the thing, and
Hmm.
then like it vibrates, and it was like it goes, we're gonna listen now until the sound disappears, and then so the room was full, and then he made the sound, and he started so slow, and you can, and he was so consistent, and so like the sound come out of silence, and it was super quiet, and then it had this huge resonance, and then of course it dies. Then he stopped, the motion, and it dies away, and you know you can tell like you listen to the sound until it goes away, and you open your eyes and you look around, and you kind of notice other people then later. Some people already have their eyes open, some are still listening, and then like looking around, like the point where I thought the sound ended was like 4 minutes before John decided that the sound was over. It was just like a really incredible experience. It's also a super fun exercise I do with the kids in music lesson. I don't if you've ever done this in a piano lesson, like tell the kid, you play a chord and then you hold it until like you don't hear it anymore, and see how
Hmm.
long they can kind of listen to the sound decay away. I mean, even a young child like gets kind of intrigued by that, but you can only do it once.
Yeah, exactly. It's like really magical the first time, right? For when you're
Yeah,
teaching. Yeah.
and you're like, Let's do that again.
You're like,
Let's
no, it's
fill our
okay.
lessons. No, no, no. So yeah, that
That's
was
pretty,
fun.
yeah,
Another,
it's a, go ahead.
I was gonna say another at that same time. He was doing a similar exercise. I don't think it was this one, but it was another presentation, and it had something to do with some kind of very delicate, quiet sound, and or he was speaking very, very softly, or something was happening very, very softly, and like the room was in rapt attention to what he was saying. And in front of the choral room, there's these two big, heavy doors, and then somebody comes bursting the door open, and this big, loud noise comes, and of course, I was a big sourpuss, and I like looked over. I was glaring. I was like,
Cool, yeah.
how dare you
Ruin my
disturb the
time.
sanctity of this moment with that this guy has built. And then I looked down at John, who just was totally unfazed and just like focused on the thing. And then I realized it doesn't matter like what. loud noises occur in a room, like you don't have to let it distract you.
Hmm.
And like, because and that taught me not to be like, you know, there's like a story about Alfred Brendel. Someone coughs, he'll look over and he'll like raise his eyebrow or so back
Like
when he was
the Keith
playing.
Jarrett stories as
Oh,
well
the
and stuff
Keith,
like
oh
that.
my God, like
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
just absolutely absurd. So like, be more like John, just
yeah.
like
Yeah.
keep focus on your thing. I
I
like
have
that.
two thoughts. The first one is that actually reminds me a lot of those Pauline Oliveros deep listening
Hmm.
workshops. I don't know if you're familiar with those. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And the second is that I had that experience on stage. This is one that I remember really vividly because I was playing, Beethoven 109.
Hmm.
Do you know the theme for the last movement?
Um, is that the
That's
no?
the second
It's
movement.
that second movement. The third,
Yeah,
the third, the very beautiful one with the variations.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
E major, like
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
Um, I was playing that in DF Koch. Must have been my third year, and it was I was really just I don't know. It was so special. I mean, I think it's still such a special piece to me now, but like back then, learning for the very first time and hearing it freshly, it was just I thought it was just such a powerful piece, and I started that theme, and I thought, oh, this is just it's really nice to be on stage right now and playing this, and it was very meditative. And within four measures, a bunch of contractors came through the back door and started doing work, and they were just like yelling at each other, like Jerry, and then they would like start hammering things, and like they were moving planks,
Oh,
and it was probably half of that movement that they were doing
wow,
work. And I
brutal.
just remember, like, I know it was like pretty distracting, but it was one of those times where I was on stage that I felt, oh wow, I feel really focused, and I just feel really just concentrated on what I'm doing, and it never actually just didn't bother me at all. But I did think it was really funny.
That is a cool story, and it's amazing that you kind of held together. I mean, um, like, uh, and I guess also just having feeling that power of focus over
Yeah.
everything else is like it's pretty special. It's like these temporary things. I mean, 109 is a thing that lasts forever. I love that one that kind of cascades down. That's the same thing, like one of those variations. Da 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 do do do
Yeah,
do
yeah.
do do. Yeah.
That's very
Oh yeah.
beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. And those trills at the end. Oh, those are
Oh,
those
the trills are
are
the best part, honestly. It's so like
yeah, Mr.
culminating.
Trill Fingers. Yeah,
I
oh, it's beautiful.
yeah, I can't even remember this that much anymore. I remember playing this in a master class with Anton QWERTY, and he asked me to do something that seemed completely ridiculous in terms of, but his hand is like just larger than mine. So he was like, "Oh, you can't do that with the trill." I don't remember what he had asked me to do, and anyways, I just absolutely couldn't do it. But um, yeah, the story is not very good because I don't remember most of it.
Just block out the bad memory, it's just like
Yeah,
there was a thing that happened and it wasn't great. I just couldn't do it. It's
it's
physically
really
impossible for 80, like for 99% of
yeah, yeah, basically what happened. But
cool.
anyways,
Right
good
on.
times, good piece.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Cool.
was gonna say earlier with your description, have you ever thought of, doing writing prompts, writing for TV shows? Feel like you've got a real skill there.
Ah, yeah. The well, when the Pew TV show comes out, after the wild success of our podcast, I'll put my copywriting to good use. I mean, I could totally slam Open AI or whatever it's called. Is it Open
Chat
A what's
GPT.
it? Oh, Jav GPT. Open what? Open
I don't know. That's
open
the only one I
something.
know. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't I think I'm a decent writer. Yeah, sure. Like I couldn't actually write for anything important, but like I can put up a little synopsis of the I think Olivia is really good at that. Um Olivia is my wife. I remember like sometimes she, she starts to talk about something. I'm like, oh God. But then like she can very systematically summarize something very quickly. And I was like, oh wow, that was like, because at first I thought it was just gonna take forever and like be really drawn out and annoying. But then she was really quick and then really precise at hitting all the things. And I was like, oh, I think I'm way messier than that. um, do you enjoy? I mean, do you ever summarize things for podcasts? Well, not for podcasts, but
No, I've
like,
never done it.
do you ever have? Are you finding yourself needing to write summaries for things?
I guess I kind of do that all the time. I feel like teaching is a lot. This is our segue to go into teaching, but
There we go.
somehow, but I do feel like teaching is like that because I feel like the act of teaching all the time, you know, you're explaining things a lot and to varying levels of students, right?
Yeah,
And I find that the summarizing or the simplification of the thing that you're trying to say is an ongoing process. And I think that that
absolutely.
was always the biggest challenge. It's in translating the knowledge, even if you know something. But yeah, I guess thinking of it from that perspective, I think it was something that I thought of doing all the time. And you know, you try to really cater things towards the student.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like, uh, I always try to make things as simple and as clear, but as rooted as possible, you know?
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes I think that's really good. I was thinking about this the other day. So I remember like John Monroe, who is a great pianist, teacher, musician, composer, everything, from Newfoundland. I asked him, you know, what's the most important thing in teaching? I probably said this before. He's like, you know, um, one of the most important things, and it was along the lines of making sure that you give somebody only one thing to do at a time, like never
Hmm.
overload. Like you have to like really kind of like find that one thing. So I'm always looking for the one thing that can make um, a difference. And you know, of course, sometimes that one thing might contradict six other things that I also want to say, but like
Hmm.
at the same time, I guess that's why you have to focus on one thing. But then translating that to my work with young students, um, it could also be a bit paralyzing too, trying to like be very
Yes.
specific with like, you know, 5 or 6 or 7 year old who's like really a beginner, and then just trying to figure like what is that one thing that I can get them to do, and then being too specific has maybe been more of a mm, you know, like Oscar, my son, has really in the last month or two kind of taken it upon himself to finally kind of get into playing a little bit more music, which is, you know, I find great. I never want to push him into it, and I've never put him into it. But I think I wonder if like trying to kind of always be very kind of give him a little tiny little thing to do was
Hmm.
like making it, I don't know, instead and making it too abstract or too finite or too I don't know. But I try to be a bit more broad these days with the young ones. If that makes
My
sense.
my opinion, or I guess my experience with younger students, specifically 4 to 8 year olds, is it's already like a pretty big ask to ask a 5 year old to sit in a lesson for half an hour. I think that that's actually just a very demanding amount of time for them, for their attention and you know just capacity to even you know sit. And I think even just doing like pedagogy courses and stuff like that too. A lot of the time, I think a lot of what I did was try to jump between a bunch of things that could be, I don't know, achievable in a shorter amount of time so that you could do, because I think that focusing on one thing with a 5 or 6 year old is just really, it's really difficult. So rather than that, I think giving them maybe a few things that they can jump between, but that are relatively quick to teach, and also that can lead to, I don't know, just steady
Yeah.
results. I guess I found that that
Well, I
was
mean,
helpful.
yeah, totally. Like to reframe what I was saying. So, like, for example, the thing that I would give Oscar is like, well, let's play one note like this, like bum, and now let's do one note like this, bum bum, and now you can play a note like this, bum, or this, bum bum, and so you can go bum 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 bum. You basically like a little tool to improvise with,
Hmm.
not like one specific thing, like play now a C and now play a D and then play a C
Right,
D, but
right. I
more
see.
like grammatical things.
Like cells.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and by trying to kind of but on the same token, after, because the way that I would then teach him and some of the other kids, and there's some groups that I taught with him in it, and we would do these like cell kind of teaching, and they weren't at the end playing very much, but now a year or so later, he can sit down. He plays with a great pulse, and he plays with whatever, and he can sing it back, and he can do all these things that, like, I guess that has been built up over the last years from those things. Even though he hasn't actively been playing in the middle, I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, like when you're teaching that, like what would be like the like three things that you were giving a beginner to kind of jump between? Like, would it be between playing a note and a rhythm, playing different songs, like reading exercise, like what would be like three things?
Uh, well, first, I think that I'd always just before I talk about that, is I think the way that you're integrating all the improv into the teaching, I think is just so good and useful. And honestly, I wish I was more creative in trying to think of how to integrate that stuff, because I found that just really difficult because I didn't have lessons like that, and I don't really improvise all that well either. And so I find it like a kind of an uncomfortable experience, feeling like, well, I don't really know how to do this so well, so I don't really know if this is going to be the right way to kind of go about teaching them. But it would be just between, thinking about what the actual fundamentals of music are in terms of rhythms, in terms of notes. A lot of it's sing back stuff, right? A lot of rhythm exercises, just like and sing back, and also just kind of getting acquainted with the keyboard, and then some exercises just in helping them learn how to physically move at the piano too. And I think note reading came last usually. I did a
Yeah,
lot. I did a lot by rote, and I did a lot by singing and clapping, because I felt like it was maybe more. It just felt more important. I think something that I think it gets lost a lot when kids just start by reading. You kind of get disconnected from actually the sound of the music, of the instrument, the feeling of the instrument. And I think those things are just more important.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, cool. I mean, but a lot of, if you're a lot of that stuff is kind of has improvisational roots into it, just the conversational way
Mm,
of like clapping back a rhythm or those like this, like in real time, or rote stuff is, in some way uh like that too, playing by ear, using your ear, not like going
yeah.
right to the page. Um, your
You can also
improvising
do.
skills are fine, Michael. You're
I feel really uncomfortable improvising. I'll say that then.
I
Um,
think most of us, until you're out touring doing it, it's going to feel kind of like impostery, but like
it just feels, yeah,
it's
it's a
definitely
self-conscious
fine
thing.
for yeah, yeah. What are you gonna say? Sorry.
I was gonna say that I also found that when you're doing with rote things, for example, clapback exercise, you can get so advanced with the rhythms, even with a 5 or 6 year old, they will respond to just, if you're doing septuplets and stuff like that. If you're just going back and forth between quarter notes and septuplets, for example, I found that that actually was a pretty I don't know. It's like very they're very responsive to the change in speed, the change in time, and also just the pulse itself. And I
and the
found, I
feel
mean,
of it,
yeah,
yeah,
and
they're
the
much
whole
more
feel of it,
natural.
exactly.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
just
like they're
it's
not thinking.
exactly they're just responding
Yeah,
to it, and you can
yeah,
tell that it's actually very intuitive for them, and having to translate that to the page, I felt like that is a bigger step, and
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
There's just so many different, like the thing that I always get stumped on is like I'm good at starting, but
hmm,
like there's just such an infinite stuff, and it's so easy to get lost in like where we are on this continuum of like possible things and
yeah,
like and you know, I had a friend of mine who's an amazing drummer come up, and I was like, "Can you like teach a week at in Germany rhythm to like my to my German piano students, like not like cool hip hop drummers and stuff, but like like how would you? I'd be really interested in doing that." And he said yes, and he came up and he stayed for a week, and within that week, so we did a bunch of very, very, very basic exercises. It was all about getting back to this basic pulse. And I had actually found a couple of drumming kids who were in high school and like were okay drummers to come in and have a lesson with them. And they came in and like he's like he can do everything, he can just he can just like he can just do anything with the beat that's possible.
right,
Charles Burchell is his name, and
right,
this guy is like a wonderful, wonderful drummer. He's the guy who I was getting you in
yeah.
touch with to talk
I was
about
about to say
this
that.
art stuff.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Um, and he was very gracious, came up and did this. And the was like, how do we do like what you do and stuff? And then like the exercise he made them do, I don't know if I said this before, like so you had that, you have a hi-hat in one foot, a bass drum in another foot, you have your left hand, your right hand. He's like, take your hi-hat foot, put a metronome on like 60, and you just go chick, chick, chick for like I don't know 3 minutes, and then you do your left foot chick, chick, and then you do your right hand, each one by itself for like a certain number of minutes, and then when you've done all 12 minutes, which is a hell of a long time
That's
to
a
be playing
long
like
time.
quarter notes, and then
That's
you can
a
do
really
eighth
long
notes,
time.
that that, and then just doing that in each limb, and I was like, that's that's pretty cool. Like um and so I had some adult students and we were doing some improv stuff, and I brought them back then to like playing, okay, we're just gonna play a C on the middle finger and really no, seriously, and then and then we're gonna do like eighth notes to like a I don't know 80 or something, so you're doing that, and then like add another note, so then you create like a C D C D C D, and then they're doing that to like the click, okay, now play a fifth on the left hand, C D C D C, and now you can add a third note in the right hand, C D da, 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 da. And then you create these different things, one again, these little kind of like modular things, and just like even doing tiny little variations on that, and then coming back and playing like a pop song, like
Mm,
from a chord sheet,
yeah,
their feel was so much better. Like
yeah, that's
it's
really
not about
interesting.
practicing the actual piece, it's just like really solidifying your pulse, because we all rush,
Yeah. Hmm.
and or I mean most humans rush,
No, I rush all the time. Yeah.
or drag or whatever.
I'm always ahead of the beat.
Yeah, eh, just always in the wrong place, not in the pocket. And that was a that was cool to be just working on that. And then it's just like convincing people the best way to get better is to like play quarter notes for a half hour with your right
It's
hand and then your left
it,
hand.
it's really funny to hear him also break it down like that because I'm like I don't teach my students this way, but I'm such a technique grinder. I
Yeah,
was for a long time too, and I don't know. I mean, that's maybe a I don't know. I think they're similar things. Just like doing every variation, permutation of every single scale or pattern forever,
yeah,
for hours every single day. And it's like, it was like, obviously, like, I don't know. I don't know how enjoyable it was, but I found I it helped a lot to just
Yeah.
go through that process. And I
Well,
don't
I guess
know. Yeah.
it removes like questions from the equation. It's like I do this, and
Yeah.
like I therefore I can just focus on doing it right as opposed to thinking about like any bigger context of it. Maybe
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. Like you
Yeah.
see, I don't know, for example, if you see, I'm thinking of like Liszt second ballade, for example, all of these chromatic alternating octaves. I just see the alternating octaves. Like, okay, I practice these like a bajillion hours. So I can just play these. I don't need to, I can just read this. I don't actually need to practice any of this anymore. I just need to know
Yeah.
how high it goes, how low it goes, but I can just do it with my hand because it's kind of in there.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
that's what we try to tell our students. Just like all music is just it's just going up and down and playing the same. It's just practice your
yeah,
skills.
exactly.
Um, and like I hate using lesson time to teach scales because it's just such a you play the but and so I don't for like a long time forever. And then at a certain point, all my students suck at scales because I never talked to them about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, and their technique is not so great. I'm like, well, geez, I guess I need to. I just like I got to do this, but I'm I'm not a lazy teacher just trying to fill like like time playing like scales, but I just got to make sure it gets done. But I never practiced my. I wasn't a technique finder like you, so but I want them to be better than me. So I say this every like few months, and like I said it last week in last week's lessons. I was like, guys, we're gonna really this time, like I promise. I've said it before. I was like, we're gonna do 15 minutes of like technique every day, and I got these students, and I've got one. She's like 15 and she's great. She loves the piano. Every few minutes she gets to the piano and
That's
plays.
awesome. Yeah.
But like she doesn't have very many free minutes. So that might amount to like 35 minutes a day. Okay.
Hmm.
Fine. But genuinely like she loves it and she comes with a great attitude but sometimes a bunch of stuff's just simply not done. And I was like thinking like, and she wants to kind of push what she can do. She's doing some Scott Joplin rags and stuff now.
Right.
And so you gotta, and I remember a friend of mine, Georgi Mikatse, who's a fantastic Georgian jazz pianist who's about to release his record, which everybody should check out. It's going to be great. He
That's
came
awesome.
over and did a concert here in July, during which we broke a low C bass string, playing some Oscar Peterson together. It was pretty fun. Caught on video
Nice.
actually.
Ah, it's a hard string
But
to
after
break.
it's a hard one. I've broken it. I've broken the low D twice, the lowest D, and then he broke the C. So the neighbors, well, I guess they're kind of neighbors, crashing out. It's such a. Have you ever broken a bass string before?
I don't think so, actually.
Oh man, what a
I
racket!
can't
Like
remember. Yeah.
I gotta show you this video. It's really funny because like it catches the moment where it happens. He was like trembling like a C thing at the bottom, and anyway, so I said, "Hey, this is my student. She loves playing the piano." She's like, "Yes." He's like, "Oh, really? That's great. How many hours of practice do you do a day?" I was like, like it's like we don't really measure our practice in hours, buddy. And then I realized, you know what? Like, but this is why we're stuck. This is why we can't like, really, if you, it's a half hour of warming up that one needs really if one's going to try
Yeah,
and advance. And
it's true.
it's just finding out like I like to have music be an enhancement to things, and a lot of people kind of thread that line of um but for people who really it's not going to be what they do but they love it, like one just has to carve out more serious time if you want. There's no other way around it, I don't think. I mean, what do
Hmm.
you think?
No, it's true. And I think that that part about even just the half hour being a warm up, I think that that's true. It's not even just our physical warm up, our hands, our fingers, our arms, all of these things, but just having the mind or the headspace to be able to tackle some music in a serious way. I think, I still am practicing now, but if there are some days that I'm really busy and I get enough time to warm up and then that's about it. And
Yeah,
I don't
but I
know,
mean,
it's
you've
not
got a
very productive.
certain you have a certain like like baseline established by this point, right? Like
Yeah, but I'm not like
even
I'm not
such like it
improving.
still takes
Yeah.
a while to rebuild up a baseline. Like
Yeah.
I got back to practicing last week, and it took me 3 or 4 days before I kind of got into like actually a bit of progression.
Hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Cool. Well, I there's not really the ending of a topic, although um I think I think
It's a good
we
spot.
can we can call it a night. It's
Yeah. You're
1:10.
probably pretty late
Um
for you. You're gonna be up soon.
yeah.
You're gonna be awake
Well,
soon.
today we had the pleasure of hosting Florian Höfner's trio in Pew.
Cool. Yeah.
And they played here tonight, and I'm just kind of on the back end of cleaning up after that. So, but it is pushing a threshold of time that I do not feel like crossing. So,
That's very fair. You should rest.
but I'm really
Yeah.
glad that this worked out because I thought
Hmm.
we had to establish this routine. So we've done it, and this is fantastic, and it's wonderful to hear you and to see
Yeah, you
you.
as well. Yeah.
And
Virtually though,
um,
not in person.
but yeah, no, yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Okay.
no,
No, you
no
not
more
doing that
distant
again,
person stuff.
right? Yeah. Okay.
No, we'll go right to the Duke. We're just gonna
But we're gonna take separate booths and then we'll go on Zoom.
we can try that. Yeah, we'll see.
Anyways,
Anybody, you
yeah.
have a good night. Take
Yeah,
care.
you too. Okay.
Nice to see you. Bye bye.
Yeah, see you. Bye.
Ciao.